We're back, and it's a nice, familiar, great episode with my friend Taylor Bodin, lead trail reviewer, and I guess head of Dirt Division for Believe in the Run. Is that the official name, Taylor? Dirt Division?
That's going to be the official name. Yep.
I love it. Today, we're going to do three brands that really that we're saying these are like big mountain brands, and these three there's plenty of other big mountain brands, but these three, there's all something interesting happening with each one of them. We've got La Sportiva, Arc'teryx, and Rossignol. And for those of you who don't know, Rossignol is making a jump in, this year. I think it's this year, right? With a new shoe. I see it around Paris in the Rossignol shops. So, Taylor, before we jump in and go in on those three brands, welcome. I'm glad that you're here. How you doing?
Yeah, good. Thank you. I feel like now that we're doing this monthly, it feels like a long time.
It does. Because we were weekly every 2 weeks. I mean, we were going hard for a while.
Yeah, and we've covered a lot, but this is one of those episodes that we've been like talking about, I think, from like the earliest episodes we've done. And it's exciting to get here because these brands, La Sportiva, Arc'teryx, Rossignol, and some others that we would classify as big mountain brands.
Yeah.
Especially as Americans, we don't see them all that often, but you have said that you've seen a lot of these brands just around on people's feet. And it makes sense over in Europe.
Yep.
And so they're very European style, for lack of like a better, bigger category.
Yeah.
In terms of design, philosophy, all that. But they have been more lately broadening to appeal to an American audience or North American audience, I would say, which will eventually, like, especially for ultra running in particular, not just trail running, but ultra running in particular, is going to appeal to pretty much everybody. And so it's interesting to see their history, and we'll get into all that, but it's been this one I've been mulling over for a long time and kind of waiting for some of the shoes that each brand has debuted this year to really be able to, they're going hard in the paint, all of them.
I think there was a lot of episodes that we did that we enjoyed thoroughly, but we also felt like, hey, if we're going to tackle this idea of going through brands, there's some brands that deserve to go first, or they're, when you look at any given race in America, these are the brands that show up the most. And so we've got to give them their due. And we want to do that Hoka episode, that Solomon episode. They deserve it. They were fun episodes, but in the back of our minds, like, hey, these sort of emerging, I think of them as emerging big mountain brands in America, man, that's, it's fun to think about because especially entrepreneurially, even though they're established, large brands coming from other places, they're trying to break into the market. And that's fun. It's fun to see how a big brand tries to all of a sudden, like Rossignol, get into trail running. And La Sportiva, how are they finally, in my mind, I always thought of them, I only knew of them through Anton Kaprichka, and I know now they're the title sponsor for Cirque Series in Salt Lake, or headquartered in Salt Lake. But how they break through with this shoe? Like, how are they doing it? So it's just entrepreneurially fun to watch these three brands. So which brand do you want to start with?
Well, I was just going to make a comment too. I think we should start with La Sportiva.
Okay.
But it's just interesting, like in our shoe list that we continually renew on the Believe in the Run website of like top 5 trail racers, top 5 like daily trainers, or just general trail runners.
Yeah.
These types of brands are taking up a lot of those spots, even from the brands like Solomon and Hoka and Nike and all those that have traditionally been in the top spot and pretty secure. But we're seeing a lot of these other brands from our reviewers of just like, from a purely performance and experience standpoint, they're really nailing a lot of things. And that's with all the brands we're talking about today, not just La Sportiva. I think.
Well, it's fun on that note. It's fun to see when you see like startup brands like Norda and Speedland, they're new companies and they're breaking in. And so they don't know they still don't know everything, even though Speedland guys had a ton of experience. Norda has a ton of experience. They were new brands and they were trying to break in. What's interesting to me about these three brands today is that they are established, if not even established, their heritage already.
Totally.
And so they're coming in with a lot of know-how, and even more than that, big budgets, though money is not always, the indicator of success, but they've got money and know-how. And so that's why I think these three are fun.
Well, and they have money and know-how, but they're all coming from different sports outside of running. And where like something like Speedland and Norda, they came in knowing their coming right
That's who
into
they are.
trail running. And
Yeah.
yeah, very much their DNA. And so that's the interesting thing across these three brands, is that they all came from a different sport or a different activity involving the mountains, and that's what evolved them in their design philosophies for the mountains. And so that's, we talked about that with both Hoka and Solomon pretty heavily, of like they started in different sports in different ways, but once they got into running, they're using their know-how, like you said, and
Yeah.
their experience to inform their designs. And so
Yeah.
we see that pretty heavily here. And now that they've, well, let's see, Arc'teryx, La Sportiva has been the one that has been in the running space the longest, and we're
Mm-hmm.
finally seeing them branch out from some of their original models and molds.
Yeah.
And so yeah, experience pays for a lot, but it's a different type of experience we're talking about than with the Nikes, the Adidas, those kind of brands.
Yeah. And here's probably, and maybe let's define this big mountain. But I
Mm-hmm.
think of, when I think of La Sportiva, you know, I think of Italy. And so I think of the Alps, UTMB, you know, touches the top of it. I believe the Dolomites,
Yeah,
if that's that, you
they
know,
claim the Dolomites, and that's a
yeah.
huge part of their story, and they all will always want to be in the Dolomites. Even their main factory is in the
Oh,
Dolomites,
really?
and so
Okay.
so
That's cool.
they, yeah, which is really cool. They really well, let's just go with La Sportiva right away, I guess.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, they're from Italy, and like in the heart of the Dolomites, they their design philosophy for everything they create across all sports. So when we're talking about big mountain sports, these brands have their fingers deeply embedded into climbing,
Mm-hmm.
mountaineering, skiing, all of those true mountain
Yeah.
sports. And
Yeah.
so Italy, the Dolomites are really known for being like really steep, old, like
Yes.
technical mountains
Yes.
in Europe. And so the La Sportiva wants all of their gear, anything that they put to market, has to be able to like go walk out of their factory right into their mountains and really perform.
And so,
And
okay, so
so,
that's perfect. That's, as we're in La Sportiva and thinking about the definition of big mountain, that's the perfect snapshot of why I don't think they've had a ton of, I don't want to say success.
yeah,
They've had success, but that the American market for them, you don't need, there's very few scenarios where you need what you need in the Dolomites. And so
exactly.
the engineering on them, all of that sort of stuff, and I don't know the specifics, but it just feels like, hey, what's the best American context? The best for me, I would say, the way that it comes into the American context is because it's got to look good and function well. And so,
Exactly.
but the function is Dolomite. Well, where does that necessary in
We,
America?
yeah, exactly. And so like we find little pockets of La Sportiva around.
Yeah.
Like there's some of the East Coast mountains where La Sportiva can be pretty popular. Boulder area, because
Yeah.
it has access to a lot of climbing too. And so a lot of the runners who previously wore any trail running shoes from La Sportiva would be like, you know, scrambling the flat irons, or also
Yes.
getting to some more technical terrain that's involving peaks, something like that, or like Salt Lake City area. Those
Yeah.
are three pockets of where La Sportiva is quite popular. But if
Yeah.
you're in that space, you'd think it's a popular brand or popular shoe,
Yeah.
but go across greater America, it's not.
What's funny is that the stuff that I'm thinking of, like, I'm not, and I don't mean it as critical at all, but the stuff
Yeah.
that I'm saying, hey, maybe this is why I haven't seen it. I can imagine them listening to this and saying, hell yeah,
Yeah.
that's who
Yeah.
we are. Like, we are shoes that, you know, we are gear that works in the Dolomites. Yes, that's who we are. But now they have this shoe that
Hmm.
my friend Ryan Ramsby is going to be wearing for Tahoe.
Yep.
You know, like they've figured out a way. They figured out a way in.
Yeah. If we if we look at their previous business model of like, I've always appreciated La Sportiva, that they're not just going to come out with an update because it's a new year, a new color, that kind of
Oh,
stuff.
nice.
They're
I
very
do
much
like
the
that.
type of brand that they're going to wait until they know what technology really works.
Yeah.
And then they're going to start integrating that into their gear, and then start broadening what that means for a particular sport. And so like with some shoes in the past, the popular ones like the Bushido and the Kasha, which we've seen like Anton crush Leadville and those types of shoes.
Yeah.
but he's a unique case too of like he's one of those athletes who's doing all of this mountain scrambling and is most comfortable in a shoe like that because it really kind of feels like that old school original trail runner in terms of like it's firm, has great grip. It's going to be mechanized in some way. That's a very European thing to have some like stability and support mechanisms. A lot of times it ends up being like a plastic plate posting or something like that. And that was true for La Sportiva as well. And a pretty slim fit because they come from a mountaineering hiking background, creating boots, even pre-World Wars. Like that's when they started
Gosh.
and creating mountain boots. And then during the World Wars and after the World Wars, they were creating boots specifically for mountains, not just, they were creating some work boots, but mountaineering boots. And so coming from that perspective where you don't want your foot to slip or slide within in the shoe, like that's where they're coming from. And that's where most of their technology just stems from, is that they want a few things to be really down pat and not necessarily they don't care about the rest, but those are so strongly within their DNA that it's been hard to change from then till now.
That's super enlightening to me because when I think about Solomon being the lower profile and narrower type
Mm-hmm.
shoes, and then you say that about La Sportiva, and so that's these older brands, and so that this helps me with what you were just saying. But is that then those narrower shoes
Mm-hmm.
feel like a holdover, like a legacy, like a European thing, and
Yeah,
from older brands, and it's because of what you just said. There was this necessity in these big mountain situations where you needed to be really sure-footed and locked into that shoe.
exactly. Yep. Yeah, and then
Interesting.
and also like if you're going into the Dolomites and doing any sort of adventure, it's likely going to be a longer adventure. There's or like steeper
Yes.
than what we would be able to find in most places in America. And so like all those mechanisms were oriented toward being able to take it out of the factory into the Dolomites. And I completely understand and respect that, but that's also not the whole world, as you know. Like
Yeah.
you've been all over the place, run all over the world. And especially America, like we have, to your point earlier, like we could go to any time zone, north or south, and find ourselves in a different climate, different terrain.
Yep.
And a lot of it is quite a bit more gentle than the Dolomites. And so it was a hard case for a lot of running shoe stores and markets to bring that to the US and really sell this because it wasn't as practical. But
Yeah.
then now we're stepping into a couple years ago, they came out with the Prodigio line with the
Yep.
original Prodigio. So we'll kind of get into those.
Oh, that's the
With
OG. Okay, nice. I've
so
not
this
seen
is
that.
the original. And so this particular shoe was taking a lot of like modern technology, nitrogen infused midsole, still EVA, but still like having a broader fit. This was a
Mm-hmm.
very American, eyes on the American market
Yeah.
shoe. A broader fit, still very secure through the midfoot and heel, which are like the key areas. But they did, yeah, bring in a more modern midsole, no like stability mechanisms within the shoe. So that was a big step, but
Mm-hmm.
also maintaining some of that great grip, but lower
Mm.
profile than you would typically see. So this is
So
a shoe that
go ahead.
yeah, I've just seen it a lot on a lot of people's feet, and it's very worthy of that
Mm.
because it's just a great all around trail shoe, but very different from what was previously brought to market from La Sportiva.
Do you think internally at La Sportiva they were thinking, let's develop something that would do better in America, or did they develop something and that happened to be the case? Rarely are there any accidents in this world, but were
It's
they focused on America?
Part A. Yep.
Okay.
For the most part, this is part A. And that you see, even at races like UTMB, a lot of European races, how Hoka has exploded the world
Yeah.
of trail running. And so when you see that and the technologies that they're bringing and why so many even European runners are choosing something like Hoka, it's because of the dynamic foams, the fit can be, it's especially for the European market, is going to be broader, more relaxed, and a lot more comfort
Mm-hmm.
measures rather than technical measures.
I
And
see.
so for ultra running, the longer you go, the slower you're going to be going. And for the most part, on most terrain, You're going to need um, less mechanisms to like really go quickly on technical terrain, and that's what La Sportiva's heritage is all about.
Yeah.
And so this was huge for them, the Prodigio, and we'll talk about some shoes that just came out and will be coming out too. But this was like a huge move, and like one of my favorite all around trail shoes, just to throw on for basically any scenario, even if I'm going from like gravel road onto single track up to a peak. Like
Okay.
this is a great do it all shoe
Okay.
for a lot of people, and it's going to feel more modern, feel light, feel secure on foot. It's La Sportiva in all the right ways, but also a huge step forward in who they weren't but now are. And so, yeah, I like bringing this one up because this one will set the stage for all the other La
Well,
Sportiva
okay.
shoes.
Let me know if I'm getting ahead of you on this question, but
No, you're good.
so from that one
Yep.
to the most recent
Yep.
Prodigio, was there a change in technology or was it just better marketing? Because that's the one that I have seen so many places now.
Yeah, exactly. And so, like right now, I have the La Sportiva Prodigio in my right hand and the Prodigio Pro, and this
Pro.
was the secession that was meant to be from the first place to get to this Prodigio Pro, this really high end, high performance shoe.
Yeah.
They wanted something that would be like, think of it as like the base model, and that's this Prodigio. And so it has, and they actually share a lot of the same technology, same last that it's built on, but it's just amped up more in the Prodigio Pro.
Got it.
And so, whereas like the Prodigio has that supercritical EVA midsole, this is going a supercritical blended midsole, which is what you're seeing in a lot of like you've been loving running in the Zagama,
Yep.
which is that Zumax, a blended midsole, supercritical, and this has a very similar feeling midsole to it, slightly more structured and stiffer, which like honestly, like you love. I think of you a lot in this shoe because of
Yeah.
how much you love the Zagama lately. And
Yes.
once you get onto some more trails, I think this is going to be
Really.
the shoe you really want.
How is it in terms of width? Is it a
So it's going to be a little bit broader, especially
okay?
compared to most La Sportivas. And that's mostly to counteract the stack. This is their highest stack shoe so far that's debuted. It's like 34 millimeters in the heel, and I think it's a 6 millimeter drop, so 28. So it's like in that moderate stack, very much like a Speedgo is there. The other
Okay.
shoes that we're going to talk about today are also in that category, to which I would call moderate stack, which olden days would have been high stack,
Got it.
like at the onset of Hoka. But this is very moderate compared to a lot of shoes these days when we're talking about max cushion and whatnot.
Right.
But for a shoe like this, and it can run on a lot of very technical terrain, even with that supercritical midsole, really high energy, high cushion midsole. It's called their X Flow Speed midsole.
Okay.
And so it's just like taking a lot of technologies that we've been seeing happening over the last 5 years, and it's like finally in a La Sportiva shoe.
Yeah.
But also, just like the original Prodigio, like this is a very like it's worthy of the La Sportiva name
Yep.
because they can go out and run in a lot of even like quite technical terrain because of this like power wire upper. This is going to be a technology we see across a lot of brands where it's just this really thin wiry mesh, so it's really breathable, really light, but it really can map to the foot extremely well. But it's also really durable, so you're getting like the best of everything in an
Yeah.
upper, and then having more of like an integrated sock like booty, so there's no separate tongue, it's just a slip in, and so
Oh,
it's a really
I
secure.
love that.
It has pretty much like everything that I would want. This, to no surprise, like this is probably our top trail shoe of all trail shoes right now
Wow.
in any category.
Wow.
It just scores so highly on like it's super versatile. You can take it on a lot of different terrain. Very comfortable. It's got a lot of energy. It's got great grip. La Sportiva is friction white.
Yeah.
of like, there's just really not much we could complain about this shoe, except for the fact that some of those runners who want a wider forefoot, this is going to feel a little more narrow, feel a little more fitted, but not as much as some of the previous La Sportivas. And
And
so,
one thing I would like to note with that sport,
mhm,
with the Prodigio Pro, they've embraced some nice design in terms of
yeah,
that pattern on the top. Like I first saw it, and I was like, I don't know, I'm not totally sure. I didn't dislike it, but the more I've
yeah,
seen it around, the more I'm like, oh, that's really cool, and
yeah,
that's very unconventional. And so, leave it to an Italian company to do something that is satisfying the first time you see it in terms of design, but the more you look at it, it's
mhm,
like that's really good. And to have a big, loud La Sportiva at first would be like, I would, if someone to say, well, do you want to see the brand really big on the side of the shoe like that? And I would always say no. But
yeah.
then to see it in context, it's like they've done a pretty good job of with integrating the whole thing. It's a really nice design.
Yeah, exactly. And like I always love La Sportiva, even though like you and I were talking about all the very few neutral colored
Yeah.
shirts and wardrobe we have. But when it comes to like running stuff, I always love seeing La Sportivas, not just their running gear, but across their whole brand. Their
Mm,
colorists just do such an awesome job
yes.
at bringing the reds, the blues, the yellows
Yes.
all together and a fairly flashy, but somehow not flashy way. I don't really know
Yes.
how
I
to
think that to me, that feels like Italian to me, just smart
yeah,
with color.
exactly. And
Yeah.
so I think everything they bring to market is beautiful, and this very much falls in line with that and a couple other colorways they have. Like
Yeah.
there's a women's version that's white with a couple different blues,
Mm,
and like that was beautiful for me
that
to
sounds
see.
nice. Yeah.
Yeah. And so
What
yeah.
else? What else is La Sportiva? Do you have any other lines on you there?
Well, not on me right now, but from this line, so we had like the original Prodigio, which made
Hmm.
way for the Prodigio Pro, which is meant to be the race model, but this can be something you wear every single day. They felt strongly about not putting a plate in it.
Okay.
And so like this, you're just getting some benefits of the foam. You get a little bit of a film for a rock plate. Um, just a little extra protection. And then, I mean, this type of rubber gives you some good protection. It's a great option. Like if I was going to choose one shoe, like have a one shoe quiver, this would probably be the shoe
Mm,
that I'm taking over
that's
any
nice.
other trail shoe.
Okay.
Just because it can do so much, feel so good. I love it. And our
Yeah.
other reviewers loved it too. So they
Nice.
have this is their race model, and then they're coming out with the Prodigio Max. So a lot of the same design philosophy,
Hmm.
relaxing the upper a little bit. It's going to
Yeah.
mirror the original Prodigio in that, but have really a higher stack meant
Wow.
for long distances, but still aiming to keep that La Sportiva-ness in terms of like feeling good on technical terrain, but just
Wow.
centered at being able to go long your training model or your ultra distance model if you're not keen to the as much to this. And so I'm going to run Leadville. This is our public announcement, I guess.
Really?
So I'm going to be running Leadville with La Sportiva
What
in
distance?
100.
You're doing the 100.
Doing the 100 this year. Yeah.
Congrats.
Yeah, thanks. And I'm excited. Like I'm pumped to be able to run like a ton of miles in these particular shoes.
Oh, dude.
Um, over the summer, and the
Dude, that's
Prodigio
awesome.
Max is going to be one that I put a lot of long distance miles onto,
So
and
you'll
that'll
be
come this
doing the
summer.
max. You'll wear the max for the race, or to be determined if
So,
you'll do the pro or the max.
so I have an idea in my mind right now of
Yeah.
just knowing the Leadville course really well. Like I've run pretty much every step of it, besides from town to the first aid station, and
Hmm.
I've never wanted to run that section until I run the race.
Hmm.
So I know pretty much every other part of the race, and what I'll likely do is wear the Prodigio Pro until Twin Lakes, maybe even up and over
Yeah.
as well. But the Prodigio Max might take over from there. My feet are going to be, that's 40 some miles in. Then I go up and over Hope Pass, huge. It's going to be a little slower, but I mean, I'm hoping that the fit is good enough on technical terrain there that I can use the Max, get it really cushioned, a little bit slower pace, and then either continue with the Max the rest of the race or the Prodigio Pro.
Dude,
I
that's
might even
great.
just run the whole dang race in Prodigio Pro. Well, but you just never know in those hundreds, right?
Yeah. Man, that's awesome. Yeah,
So,
my
but
friend Ryan, who's
yeah,
doing some 100 plus, what we're calling 100 plus content at Borderlands, where he's just going through all the stuff that he's going to be doing for Tahoe and stuff that he wished he knew when he did Cocodona last year.
yeah,
And so his shoe strategy, Prodigio Pro is a huge piece of that. So then just
yeah,
another thing pointing to they've done a great job of making it into the American ultra trail running consciousness.
totally. And I think that's going to be a worthwhile shoe for anybody to look at, especially in that race, like truly premium category. It's going to be, I think it's either at 200 or like 190. And so it's even, don't quote me on that, actually.
Okay.
I can look it up quick. But the price is more reasonable than most. Oh, yeah, 195.
Yeah.
Okay. So whereas most of these trail racers, and granted, a lot of these trail racers have some sort of carbon plate,
Yeah.
some other technologies involved,
Yeah.
that's a really reasonable price for a truly premium race day shoe. And
I
so
agree. Yeah.
with how versatile it is, I would, if I was spending my own money on this, I would spend the 195 to have that for sure.
Yep. Yep.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay. What do you
Yeah.
think? Arc'teryx or Rossignol? Who's
Well,
next?
let's go Arc'teryx
Okay.
because kind of like stepping back, La Sportiva has been in the trail running game longer than Arc'teryx and Rossignol. So, but Arc'teryx has been in the game, might be more familiar for
Yeah.
other runners. But more recently, especially this year, 2025 and beyond, they're going to be doing all their own designs in-house. Of course, they're under the same parent company, Amer Sports, as Solomon. And so for a while there, you had alluded to
Yeah.
some things you had heard that they were sharing some resources, and even designs, and that may or may not be true. It seems like it was true, but
Yeah.
they've kind of, the shoes that they're coming out with are all in-house on their own Arc'teryx.
Yeah.
And so whereas we talked about La Sportiva coming from a more mountaineering, hiking, boot making background, Arc'teryx started in late 80s as a climbing brand. And it was
Mm.
actually originally named Rock Solid, and then they rebranded. Yeah.
Smart. I mean, what a
Yeah.
great rebrand too. I mean, Rock Solid's fine. Arc'teryx
Yeah.
is brilliant.
Arc'teryx is great. And so, and that's, coming from their logo is
Yep.
very in the, I don't even want to attempt to arc, comes
Right.
from this
The arc
particular
thing. I know. I've seen the
fossilized.
word. I don't.
Yeah, exactly. It's bigger than Arc'teryx,
Yep.
but Arc'teryx just sounds good.
Yep.
But they started originally in climbing because, and it's kind of like the classic story of like they couldn't find anything they were satisfied with, so they created their own, like high quality, and that's been part of their design philosophy the whole time of like high quality has to be able to perform. And so, and in America at least, Arc'teryx has been knocked a lot for having high quality but extremely high price tags. And is it
Yep.
worth it? And so
Hmm.
when I see Arc'teryx around, I usually see someone's hiking backpack,
Yep.
or if they come up from the city and they have their Arc'teryx down on
Yes. I mean,
jacket,
and
and
then also, I mean, important to note on that, I think just by way of the brand, because I think what you're saying is something that they're like, yeah, that's who we are. But
yeah,
I'm blanking on it now. What's their high end brand? Oh, Valence. Arc'teryx, what you're saying is something that Arc'teryx would be like, yeah, that's just who we are. I mean, like they even have Valence, and
hmm,
Valence is like, you know, I don't know the exact number, but you'll get the spirit. You'll find a jacket from them that's $1,800 to $2,400,
yeah,
and it's not even going to be branded. It's going to be like super clean. It's like that's kind of where they are. They live in that premium world, so that is who they are. But now
yeah,
their shoes look premium, but I think price wise they feel competitive. I don't know.
totally, yeah, and that's what's really refreshing from a brand like this of like now that they have, like spoiler alert, they have good shoes, and like the one I'm holding, the Cylon Pro,
Yeah,
I don't know how to say it,
yeah, that's the
but
unfortunate thing. I wish
uh,
that I knew exactly how to pronounce some of these shoe names better, but yeah,
yeah,
Sylan.
yep, exactly.
Yep.
And so like this is a phenomenal shoe. We were really surprised by this shoe, and this is kind of their, whereas we were just talking about the La Sportiva, Prodigio Pro as kind of being like the helm of their performance. The
Yeah.
Cylon or Cylan Pro is the helm of their race day performance. And this is what's going to trickle down into the rest of their shoe lines. But
Yeah.
I mean, it's really nice to be able to get a shoe like this from a mountain brand that started in climbing, and previously that what that meant for them in design was,
Yeah.
again, like La Sportiva, having a very secure fit, but a little more minimal. They pride themselves, Arc'teryx, they pride themselves on the coast mountains. It has to be able to perform in the coast mountains. So they too, just like La Sportiva, we're very regional specific
Yeah.
because of the mountains they're trying to perform on.
Huh.
And so that type of train is like, they get like over 100 days, like a third of their year is rainy.
Yeah.
And so like it's going to have a more
Oh.
minimal upper. It needs to be breathable. It needs to be secure, great grip.
Yeah.
And from a climber's perspective, like the more feel on the rock that you have, right, is going to be the best security, the best performance.
Yeah.
So that made their way into their shoes. Like the Norvan has been like their most popular shoe series, which I also have here. They updated this year, but having something like the Cylon Pro that tries to maintain a lot of that, but also
Mm-hmm.
broaden into a more tech savvy department with like having better foams that are going to please the underfoot feel for more runners than just those who are trying to go in and scramble, or
Right.
in those kind of things, and like different geometries. Like it's a more curved forefoot, that having that rocker feel, and then bringing in some great brands like Matrix. Like nobody really does an upper better than Matrix in terms of durability and being able to map to the foot, all that kind of stuff. So Arc'teryx, like they're really surprising us right now, because
Yeah.
not just from the Cylon Pro, but from some of the other shoes that they're bringing in. Like the Vertex is kind of like that. It looks like a
I
climbing shoe,
mean,
doesn't it?
it's such a good looking shoe. I got to, you might have even been on the call. They did something where they were releasing their shoes and just showing, I mean, just, I couldn't believe how beautiful they are. They have done such
Yeah.
a good job for someone like me. I don't know how that
Uh-huh.
fits. It might not be the right fit for my foot. I'd probably, seeing that shoe, put it on and try and run 100 miles in it just because it looks so good.
Yeah. It does. Like when a shoe just looks good when you just like post like me holding it in
Yeah.
my hand, and it gets like oodles of comments of just like how it looks good. And you're
Yes.
right. Like that is something that many runners are like, boom, I'm looking at that. It looks good. That's going to pull the intrigue in
The
a little bit.
colorway on it is just smart and
Yeah.
good.
And yeah, again, like one of the things I've been hearing a lot lately of like, oh, it looks like a Solomon, it's a Solomon, blah blah blah, but it's not. They're separating themselves from that time period
Mm-hmm.
in their design, and so like this is very different than any other shoe that I've been in. Like it's going to be lower to the ground, it's going to be a little firmer, meant for more technical pursuits. So this is like, I feel like this Vertex Speed is one that really plays to their heritage of climbing, but also in a run package.
Yeah.
And so that's great. But one shoe that they do have coming out kind of meets the middle between the Cylon Pro and that Vertex Speed is their Norvan
Mm.
series, which
Yep.
again we commented on. Like that's been their most popular, and for good reason. Has really high quality, comfortable fit, and so they're trying to maintain that here. But I mean, I think this shoe looks pretty stellar too.
Yeah, a good solid black and white. That actually kind of stands out because I'm just here thinking like, have I seen just a black? I know that Norda released like an all black, and all black
Mm-hmm.
is more of like a urban trail running like
Yeah,
style choice, but that's super clean. That still feels like that one's meant to be ran on in the trail.
yeah, exactly. And so this one, in my review of this one, the Norvan, this is the Norvan LD4. And have you run in this shoe too?
No, they sent me
Okay.
they sent me some, but final mile logistics in Paris are notoriously not
Yeah,
great,
I'm sure.
so they never made it to me. It's so hard to get
Oh,
anything to my house.
well, this one, well, that's kind of a bummer. Maybe you can get another pair, because this feels um, like an updated, a new version of that Solomon Sense ride.
Oh,
And
really?
so we were talking a lot about that shoe, and both have
Fond memories.
fond memories of that shoe. And so this like felt like that in a lot of ways, but more modern and a more comfortable fit. And so I hope you get to get in this shoe because I think you'll
Yeah.
get a
Me too.
little
I mean,
blast
so
from
it's
the
funny.
past.
I live right next to a Rossignol store and an Arc'teryx store. I walk out my door, I'm there in 5 minutes. So
Yeah.
I go in and admire them for sure.
Yeah.
Like, just I go get photos of them for no good reason, just because I think maybe I'll need a photo of this. But yeah, in person,
Yeah.
they're stunning. They're great looking shoes.
Totally. Yeah. And I mean, we've been fairly happy with the performance as well.
That's
And this
awesome.
one, it just kind of, just to be out there with it, of like, this was a fairly average score for us, but this is supposed meant to be like kind of their average trail runner.
Mm.
Whereas the Sideline Pro had a really high score for us, and that's meant to be their highest performance package
Yeah.
in terms of trail running, trail racing. And so, like, I think they're really hitting it in a great space right now of like they're having something in pretty much each category,
Yeah.
and it's good, it's quality, and it feels on brand. Like they're building the brand really well.
Yeah.
Looks very nice. Using high quality ingredients like Vibram on all their shoes.
Yeah.
We talked about Matrix being in the other shoes as well, and yeah, more modern foams. I think like it's just nice that a brand like Arc'teryx, which wouldn't previously be known for their trail running necessarily,
Yeah.
they have some really good options actually.
You know what this is making me think of? As soon as you said they've kind of got something in each function category, the first time I really started to think that way was when we did the North Face episode.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like Arc'teryx, I'm not saying they're copying North Face, but I'm saying their business model appears to be somewhat similar, where they came from a place where, hey, we do trail shoes and we're playing and we're committed, but it feels like there was a time where North Face clearly put the money where the mouth is and said, we are committing
Exactly.
and we're going to get all these categories. And Jean-Marc Dejean came in and hit it out of the park on all of those categories.
Absolutely.
That's what it feels like Arc'teryx is doing. I think the guy's name is Josh Herr or Hare,
Yeah.
Herr.
And he has a lot of he has a lot of industry know-how. And so now that they finally have like lots of experience in one room, from multi-sports and especially from the trail running side, there's no reason they shouldn't be having some great shoes. And it's just fun to see more options out there from more brands, especially these big mountain brands. Like, I'm a mountain person, and so like it just it really hits home when mountain brands are able to create something that you can truly run in the mountains with, but also like they have options for broad trail running experiences. So and that,
man, that's fun. So then if we put it in that lane, it feels like Arc'teryx just did this drop, really intentional drop, really beautiful drop, that it feels like that their best days are ahead of them, like that they're leaning in, they're making good decisions. These shoes are not only stunningly beautiful, that they are working practically out in the mountains.
Yeah. And like for anybody listening to this and just thinking it's a Salomon shoe, it's not anymore. Like they're separating. I think there's a lot of shoe similarities between them, but I would do that too if I had a shared resource like the experience.
Oh my gosh.
Salomon. Like, why wouldn't you?
Yeah, how could that be a knock to say that? I mean, Salomon, everybody is in this space is in some way inspired by them. I get it, but that maybe they were like using some similar design, they were very, but of course you're inspired by Salomon. And if you got that shared resource ability, embrace that. It got them into the space and it seems to be working.
Exactly. And I mean, I really hope like some people will give Arc'teryx shoes a chance. Because they're worth it. Like the Cylon Pro, especially if like that's going to be the shoe that has a trickle down effect into the rest of their shoes, like it's just a great option for a lot of different things, like the La Sportiva Prodigio Pro. I would take that shoe out for a lot of different applications. And so whether that's long or short, fast or slow, like it's just a good all around shoe. So,
okay, are you ready for Rossignol?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let me tell you why. And I don't think it makes sense, but here's the feeling I get with Rossignol is that there's something extremely charming about what Rossignol is doing, like endearing, because I walk past their shop and they just have one shoe. It's one red shoe in all of their windows. So coming out of ski season, they change all the windows displays and you get one red shoe in all of their windows displays. And it's this new trail shoe. I don't know if it's that I have fond memories of Rossignol growing up, even though I wasn't much of a skier. All my friends, it was Rossi stuff, and it
Yep.
felt like Rossi felt like people who were serious about the sport. And while the brand did, of skiing, but while the brand did hold a lot of weight, but for some reason, everyone who I knew that had it were very good at skiing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, when I think of the shoe, it just feels like the endearing aspect of it is it feels like there's somehow still some version of it that even though Rossi's a huge company established, there's something about this new shoe that just feels like the little guy to me. And they're coming from
Yeah.
this really cool pedigree of, at least in my mind, of a brand of just outstanding performance and good people who are attached to it. So that's all I know about it. I've never touched one,
Yeah.
held one. I've just seen it in all the window displays.
Well, I think like that's a great point to bring up. Like they are a ski brand through and through, and they
Yeah.
have other fingers like in hiking, climbing, that kind of stuff. But again, in that all mountain category and really hard into the skiing lane, like that's just their thing.
Yeah.
And so like even more so than like La Sportiva, which has some um, really big, um, like their ski department is doing really well.
Right.
And so like coming from a brand that's just, yeah, I only knew of it as skiing really.
Yeah.
And if you come to the mountains and you rent a pair of skis, it's likely going to be Rossignol
Right.
because they just have that pedigree of quality, very standard, but also having like the high quality performance as well. Like um, they know their stuff. So then
Yes.
when it's a bold statement to then all of a sudden jump into trail running and saying, "Hey, we have something to offer." Like,
It
right?
is.
Of like, especially in this day and age, like if it was
Yeah.
5 years ago, I would understand it a little bit more. But here we are. They dropped a brand new shoe, the Vezzer, and it's their race day model. Which, if you're just dropping a race day model, you know that there's going to be some other things coming down the lane.
This
And
is
so
this their point of entry.
so this is their point of entry. Like, hey, here's our premium quality, just like we talked about the Cylon Pro and the Prodigio Pro. Like that's the helm of what they're trying to do, and then there's going to be some trickle down effect there.
Hmm.
And so I do know they have like a more daily trainer or a long distance trail runner coming, and I don't know if that's going to be this year or not.
Hmm.
But they came in with the Vezzer, which is what I'm holding now. Yeah, kind of
Yep.
like, yeah, it's like, do you call that a red, or is it like
Whew.
salmon? Is it
I don't know. So what's
tangerine?
funny? Okay, so
Clementine?
on all of their window displays, I've tried to get photos of them. It doesn't work. It's because they have the red shoe on a red platform with a
Yeah.
red light on it.
Uh-huh.
So it's red. I mean, it's so that's I don't actually know. This is the clearest I've seen that shoe.
Yeah. And so like I don't know how to describe this color. It's many different
It
colors in
is.
that area. But I mean it's a loud and proud shoe,
That it is.
right? Of
Yep.
like you notice it for sure.
Yep.
And so like this is in the similar category as that Cylon Pro, as the Prodigio Pro in terms of like a moderate stack shoe. It has a lot of like what we would call the modern recipe of a trail racing shoe, like a dual foams for the midsole. There's a top layer that's softer, more energetic, a bottom layer that adds a little more structure. It reminds me a lot of like the Tecton X2, like the Hoka Tecton X, and that was
Okay.
like a wildly popular shoe.
Yep.
But where their technology is a little bit different is that they added this midfoot shank here. And so it's just like, it's not entirely new technology to put a plastic piece within the midfoot. We talked about La Sportiva doing that a lot,
Yeah.
adding support and stability for that midfoot. But this is done in a much lighter, cleaner, more, I don't even know if I would say more modern because it's just a piece of plastic, really,
Right.
of like, but the how they put it into the midfoot and the density of it and everything really plays well to having a shoe that performs over a lot of terrain again.
Mm.
Like if you can get a lighter, more technical race day package, but that can feel good on a lot of different things, like that's a huge win. And so the Rossignol Vezzer is another one of those shoes that really surprised us this year
Yeah.
because it really does perform to a high degree on a lot of different terrain. And so like, again, just, I wonder if this is obviously a common theme that we're talking about of like these big mountain brands, none of these shoes that we talked about have a carbon plate in it, right?
Mm,
But they're really high performing,
it's true.
and their best aspects are actually the fit and then going down to that midsole underfoot feel.
Mm. And
And
did
so,
they partner with, I'm trying to see the logo, Michelin? Did Michelin do
yeah,
the rubber?
Michelin is their outsole, which we've been really pleased
Yep.
with any shoe that they've been on. The outsole is finally one of those things that like pretty much every brand has a grade A level of outsole that they could throw on their shoes, and
Yeah.
Michelin is in that category for sure in both
Yeah.
durability and grip.
Yep. And so this is like Rossi is like a French company, correct?
Yep. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're
And so
they're
then
French.
Michelin is a French company. Like it's like,
Oh,
this is
I
what I
didn't know
love
that.
about it is that
Yeah,
it's a French, like this is it's a French expression. So that
totally.
loud color, French are so good in my opinion. I know I said this about Italy.
Yeah.
French are so good with color. And the example is that you look at it, it's loud. It's like there's these competing reds or something like that.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a little bit cerebral. And I think it's not just like the Norvan or whatever that was just perfect. I see it and instantly I'm
Yeah.
happy. I have to look at that and think about that for a minute.
Yeah.
So it's heady, and some people may hate that, and I don't necessarily love that that's the case. But the more you look at it, the more it starts to make sense, or the more it starts to make you think. But it's just not like it's not on the nose.
I wouldn't want a whole kit of this, but if it's just my shoes,
Yeah,
like, yeah, it captures your attention and holds
yeah,
it for a little bit, makes you
yeah,
linger a little bit. Whereas like, yeah, that the Norvan just made you kind of like, yeah, be pleased. You see it and it feels good.
yeah.
Like, but this is like, yeah, I that's a good point of
So they only have one colorway.
they'll have a couple other colorways in this.
Okay.
I think there's like the women's version is more of a peachy
Okay.
than this one. I think this color might be in both men and women.
Got it.
Um,
I mean, it feels like that color to them means something clearly because of their
exactly.
displays
Yeah.
and how bold it is. And so, like, as
Hmm.
this launch point
Yep.
into trail running, I just wonder if that's the design, that's the color language at least that will go along with there's this design language they're establishing that we're going to see is probably bold,
Yeah. Yeah.
loud.
Exactly. I would think so. And they did more of a softer launch of it at UTMB last year, just to kind of get it out there. And I would imagine they're going to do a
Mm,
pretty bold take on
yeah.
it this year. Hopefully, it's supposed
Fun.
to come out. I think a lot of it's coming out earlier than expected. It was supposed to come out like the first of the summer,
Okay.
but this is an available shoe now. And for those who have loved, like I said, the Tecton X2, like the one and the two, this reminds me a lot of that fit. It's going to be a little slimmer throughout. So if you have a slimmer forefoot too, so that's again very from the ski background, that's to be expected of like you want
Yeah.
that foot hold throughout the foot. And so it's going to be a little narrower. I have an average foot and I felt fine in it, especially after I got into running and broke it in a little bit. Very light, clean, breathable, and durable upper, but the fit from the heel to the midfoot is just like phenomenal and made me feel confident, even though it's like fairly slim in the heel. And
Mm,
there is a little bit of that rocker feel that you would get in like the Adidas Terrex Agravic Speed Ultra,
hmm.
their top of the line shoe.
Yep.
It's kind of known for having like multi-directional rocker, which kind of feels scary on the trail, but also like feels so good once you can open it up. This has a little bit of that feel, just a little
Okay.
bit, like just enough to like feel like you need to lean forward into the shoe. But once you do, like it just feels very good overall, just
Nice.
speedy when you want it to, cushioned enough to go a decent distance. I wouldn't take this on an ultra, maybe 50K,
Okay.
50 mile if it's going to be a quicker one.
Yeah.
But overall, just kind of like hitting that mid stack, putting their best technologies forward of what they know now. But I think
Yeah.
Rossignol, if they come out swinging with a shoe like this is a brand to really look into in the future
Nice.
for not just mountain pursuits, but trail running in general. Like it just feels good, looks good,
Well,
and
if this is
exciting.
optimized, like you said, Arc'teryx was optimized for where it's headquartered, and La Sportiva optimized for where it's headquartered. If Rossignol is optimized for where it's headquartered, you know, to say, up to 50K, something like that. The reason I hear that in America, we hear that and think, well, then is it really a trail shoe? Because we think of trail and ultra the same. They're
Exactly. Yeah.
synonyms. And here, it's not even close to synonym. They don't think about that at all. I
Oh
just
yeah.
heard that France now has more trail races than road races, and
Amazing.
and there's not a when I see them. So yeah, Eco Trail had a ton of distances, a few of them longer than 50K, but one race I went and did, it was just like a 13K and a 24K. 3,300 people ran it. It was just like a little
Yeah.
local race with 3,300
Two or
runners.
three. Yeah.
Yeah, and
We get
but
100 runners at a local race. It's great.
I know it's crazy. And so looking at that shoe to say it doesn't go up to 50K, well, the bulk of this market is a trail running market in France, and the bulk of
Yep.
this market isn't running further than 50K or even a
Exactly. Yeah.
mountain marathon.
So like even yeah, and it's hard in that vein, especially in America, because even all like the top race day shoes, they're oriented more toward ultra.
Yeah,
And so not that they couldn't do really well on just general trail running, your daily outing, you know, your 4 to 8 hour trail run into the national park here, which won't get you an ultra distance most
right.
times of like there's yeah in America it's hard to shed the ultra
Yes.
mindset, and
Yep.
so that's a great point of like there's all these shoes that we've talked about today are will likely do well in ultra, but they're just great trail running shoes in
Right.
general.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's where we grow in America. Is I mean, I hope that ultras grow a lot because I love them so
Yeah,
much, and all that matters. But more people on trail are not. The more we get in, as we get past this early adoption phase and into mass adoption of trail, they're not going to be doing more than 10K.
yeah, and I mean my some of my favorite experiences like in the mountains or on any trail is almost always below the ultra distance, like my most memorable days. And so
Love
and
it.
I think we put it's kind of like the marathon of like that 100-mile mark or ultra distance mark in America is the marathon worldwide of like it's
Mm,
that big hairy scary goal. We put everything that we can toward achieving that,
that's right.
but most of our days are spent in the not
Yeah.
ultra, and so like and
Yeah.
that's my favorite part. And
Right.
so
I mean,
like
so that's what's funny is that you buy a shoe that you for 1 day's use, but you're
mhm,
training in it for 300 days.
yeah, exactly.
But you're thinking, okay, what do I want to do to run Cocodona? I'm going to get this shoe. But you have 3,000 miles of training, and you're
Exactly.
thinking about your race day shoe.
Yep.
So that's funny.
Which just to kind of maybe wrap this up a little bit of like
Yeah.
that's why these particular mountain brands and they're coming out with a lineup of shoes, an option for kind of different terrain, different distances, different
Yeah.
preferences. Like that's what I'm really excited to see from all of these brands, because even if you are running Cocodona and you're going to be using the Prodigio Pro, like the Prodigio original Prodigio at a much lower price point has a lot of the same tech,
Hmm.
and it's going to feel just as good, or might even feel better to put on day to day for different types of trails.
Yeah.
And so like they have a lineup that you can feel familiar with, but then still pull out what they're head of the helm on race day.
Nice.
And so it's
Well,
exciting.
this episode was as enjoyable as I thought it'd be. I really love these stories. Stoked on all these shoes. They all, and
Yeah,
again, just like they're all breaking into the market. They're doing it their way, and it's fun to see. So appreciate, as
yeah,
usual, you taking the time and bringing your expertise. This was good.
of course. And then like one last plug of like for what we shoe reviewers do of like
Yeah.
a lot of these shoes, if you just like took their paper specs and put them on and looked at them side by side, a lot of them look so similar, but the
Mm.
experience you get is quite different. And so I think, yeah, if you go check out some reviews and just get the knowledge of the people who have been in them before, like that's
Yeah.
where running shoe stores are phenomenal of like they have people there that have been in these types of shoes. So I know like $200 around that is a lot to spend, so like
Yeah.
go read our
Yeah. And
reviews,
for
go
my
get
money, there's no one better in the world than Believe in the Run. I mean, in terms of
yeah, I'll plug that too.
getting the
Yeah,
lowdown. So
yeah,
reviewers in general, yeah, they're great. Believe in the Run is next level. So
Absolutely.
That's why it's fun to get you on here and have you do this with me.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, man. Let's do it again soon.
Yeah, we will.
All right. See you.
Bye.